It all began on a warm summer evening in Los Angeles, where the city buzzed with its usual chaos, cars honking, neon lights glowing, and strangers rushing past each other with little time to stop and notice the forgotten faces on the sidewalks. Among them was a boy no one seemed to see. His name was Ethan Carter, a thin 15-year-old with unruly brown hair, second-hand sneakers, and a guitar slung over his back like it was the only treasure he owned in the world. And in truth, it was. Ethan wasn't like most kids his age. While others were scrolling through their phones or laughing with friends at the mall, he spent his evening sitting on a milk crate at the corner of Hollywood Boulevard, strumming worn-out strings and hoping someone would drop a few coins into his guitar case. His father had left when he was little, his mother worked 2 exhausting jobs to keep food on the table, and music was the only thing that gave him a sense of purpose, of belonging. But what no one knew, what not even Ethan himself fully realized, was that his voice carried something rare. Something powerful enough to make people stop, silence the noise of their busy lives, and feel again. One evening, while Ethan was playing soft melodies to the indifferent crowd of passers-by, a man in a tailored suit stopped just a few feet away. His name was Marcus Hale, a talent scout for one of the biggest music shows in America. At first, Marcus only paused out of curiosity, maybe even pity, for the skinny boy singing his heart out on the street. But then Ethan's voice soared into a haunting rendition of Hotel California. The notes trembled in the night air, carrying a mix of sorrow and longing that pierced straight into Marcus's chest. He had heard hundreds of auditions, polished singers chasing fame, but none of them carried the raw honesty Ethan poured into every chord. When the boy finished, a small crowd had gathered around him. Strangers clapped, some dropped bills into his case, and a woman even wiped tears from her eyes. Ethan looked startled, as if he hadn't realized he had the power to move people like that. Marcus stepped forward. "Kid," he said with a smile, "have you ever thought about singing on a stage bigger than this street corner?" Ethan shrugged, embarrassed. "I don't think anyone would want to hear me. I'm just me." "You're wrong," Marcus said firmly. "The world needs to hear you." 2 weeks later, Ethan found himself backstage at the National Talent Showcase, the country's most watched competition. For a boy who had never even owned a proper microphone, it felt like stepping into another universe. Cameras flashed, contestants rushed past in glamorous outfits, and producers gave hurried instructions. Ethan stood there, clutching his beat-up guitar like it was a shield. He almost backed out. The voices of doubt screamed in his head, "You don't belong here. You're just a poor kid. They'll laugh at you." But then he thought of his mom, working late shifts at the diner, sacrificing everything so he could dream. He thought of all the nights he had sung himself to sleep because music was the only thing that kept the loneliness away. And slowly, courage replaced fear. When his name was called, Ethan stepped onto the stage. The spotlight blinded him, and before him stretched a sea of thousands, judges, cameras, an audience waiting to be entertained. His hands shook as he adjusted the microphone. "What will you be singing for us tonight?" asked one of the judges, a stern-looking woman known for her harsh critiques. Ethan took a deep breath. "Hotel California," he said softly. A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. That song was legendary, iconic, nearly impossible to sing well without being compared to the original. Many contestants had failed with it. But Ethan wasn't thinking about impressing anyone. He was thinking about survival. About pouring every drop of his story into the music. He strummed the first chord, and the audience shifted in their seats. Then came his voice, fragile at first, like a whisper carried by the wind. But with each line, it grew stronger, richer, until the entire auditorium was wrapped in the spell of his sound. On a dark desert highway. It wasn't just a cover. It was Ethan's soul bleeding through the lyrics. Every struggle, every night of hunger, every tear he had watched his mother cry, it was all there, woven into the haunting melody. The song became more than music. It became a confession, a prayer, a story of pain transformed into beauty. Halfway through, something remarkable happened. The crowd grew utterly silent. Even the judges, usually expressionless, looked stunned. One of them leaned forward, eyes glistening. Another unconsciously placed a hand over her heart. And when Ethan reached the climax, his voice cracked. Not from weakness, but from emotion so raw it could not be contained. That crack didn't ruin the song. It completed it. It told the truth. By the time he strummed the final chord, the entire auditorium was on its feet. The applause thundered through the building. Strangers hugged, some wiped tears, and even the sternest judge whispered, "Unbelievable." The host stepped forward, clearly moved. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "sometimes a voice doesn't just sing, it heals. Tonight, this boy has given us one of the most emotional performances in our show's history." Then came the sound Ethan never expected, the golden buzzer. Confetti exploded from the ceiling as the judges slammed their hands down in unison. Ethan dropped his guitar pick in shock, his eyes wide, his hands trembling. He had dreamed of this moment but never believed it could be real. The camera zoomed in on his tear-streaked face. For the first time, the world saw not just a poor boy with a guitar, but a star. Within hours, Ethan's performance went viral. Clips of his Hotel California spread across YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Headlines read, "Homeless teen brings judges to tears. The most emotional Hotel California ever." Messages poured in from around the globe. Veterans wrote to say his voice reminded them of home. Mothers said his song gave them hope. Musicians called him the future. And donations began flooding in, not just for Ethan, but for his struggling mother as well. For the first time in years, Ethan's family didn't have to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. His mom cried when she saw strangers sending money to help them. "It's like the whole world is hugging us," she whispered. But the real magic wasn't fame or money. It came weeks later, after Ethan performed again on the live show. When he finished, a man approached him backstage. His clothes were tattered, his beard unkempt, and his eyes tired. "You don't know me," the man said, "but I used to be a musician. Life broke me down. I gave up. But tonight, listening to you, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, hope." The man's voice cracked, and Ethan felt his throat tighten. Without hesitation, he pressed his guitar into the man's hands. "Here," he said. "This got me through my darkest nights. Maybe it can help you too." The man clutched the guitar as if it were gold. Tears streamed down his face. That simple act of generosity, of giving away the one thing Ethan had cherished most, echoed louder than any performance. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about healing hearts, one song, one soul at a time. Months later, Ethan returned for the grand finale. The world was watching. He walked on stage, not as a boy desperate to be seen, but as a young man who had already touched millions. When the lights dimmed and he sang Hotel California one last time, the performance wasn't about proving himself. It was about gratitude. For his mother, for strangers who believed, for the second chances life gives when kindness is shared. And when the final note faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The judges didn't just applaud, they stood in silence, as if words couldn't capture what they had just witnessed. Ethan didn't just win the competition, he won something greater. A family restored. A community united. And proof that no matter how small, poor, or forgotten someone may feel, their gift can change the world. In the years that followed, Ethan used his fame not to chase luxury but to build music programs for underprivileged kids. He wanted every child with a dream to believe, as he once had, that even from the humblest beginnings, beauty could rise. And so, the boy who once sang on a street corner with nothing but an old guitar became a symbol of hope for millions. Because sometimes, the most powerful voices are not the loudest or the most polished. Sometimes, they come from a poor boy who dares to sing his truth, turning a song into a miracle. Sparkle's final message. The world may often overlook the broken, the poor, the forgotten, but their voices hold stories that can heal us all. Ethan's journey reminds us that greatness isn't about wealth or fame, it's about courage, compassion, and the willingness to share your gift, no matter how small it may seem.